episode number 9. I'm Ike, and where the hell's
Larry. Yeah,
there
it's
he
there.
is.
There he is.
Our published author, Larry Lawson. Get his book on Amazon, by the way. Coming out
Oh,
23rd of this month.
25th,
20,
25th.
25th, yeah. Getting them out early because you want to get up early to get this book. So show up 2 days. Show up 2 days early. uh, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for watching the last episode. We had a few comments on YouTube. Judge Bobby Garcia has been leaving
Oh,
comments on YouTube.
hey, Judge, how are you?
It's always nice to hear from him, and
Good man.
it's moving right along. I mean, we're not anytime soon going viral, unless Larry does something really so fantastic in this episode that it
Don't
might
get your hopes up. Don't get
it
your
just
hopes up.
might go viral. We never know. What you been doing, Larry? What's new?
Just, doing some investigations. We got some investigations going with the team and things like that. I think I'm about to get a visit. My dog wants to come in, but she's like stopping at the door. So I'm taking care of her. She actually tore her ACL, and we're trying to get her
What?
taken care of. Poor thing, yeah. And she's
Was,
so old that doc doesn't want to operate on her. But
was she
anyway,
chasing something or what?
no, I said, hey, you want to go for a ride? And she got all excited, jumped up and down, and that's all it took. But
Oh
she's
wow,
almost 13, so
that happens to all of us. Happens to me all
yeah,
the time. I get excited, jump up and down, and I start pulling hamstrings and stuff, and
yeah. Yeah.
it's
But anyway, I digress. So just doing some investigations, getting ready for the book to come out, and that's about it.
folks. Amazon, go to Amazon, or how
Indian
is
River
there
Hot.
any other venues they can get it from?
Yeah, right now you can get it. You can get it from. We can't get it from Arcadia Press. They're the publishers. Can't get that till August 20. I'm sorry, March 25th. But you can pre-order on Amazon and Target, and somebody also said Walmart. But it's let me see if I can find it here, just so everybody can see it. Here's one of the prelim books, Haunted Indian River County. This I'll give myself a little
Yeah, it's
plug there.
nice.
So there we go. So you can pre-order it, and it was fun writing it. I enjoy talking about this stuff, as you guys all know. So
What
that's
if
all.
somebody wanted a signed copy of that book, but they don't live in the great state of Florida?
I'm more than happy if they can send it to me. I'm more than happy to sign it and send it back to them. I would appreciate if they did return postage. But here comes my partner in crime, Cooper.
Oh,
Go. I'm busy, Cooper. I'm busy, sweetheart. Anyway,
can't.
so that's how they can do it. They can go to one of the places and pre-order it and get it. And if they want to mail it to me, I'm happy to sign it.
Hey, you can get. You can probably email them if you have any questions. At the
Sure.
end of each one of these episodes, I put up the emails all the time. So if you have any questions for Mr. Larry Dawson, just shoot him an email.
Yeah, happy to answer. Good to hear from folks.
Or if you want to email me and have me ask him the question because you're scared of him because he's a scary looking dude, that's fine also.
Well, when I ran the police academy, they did call me Scary Larry. That was my nickname.
I wonder why. Can't figure that connection out at all. So last episode we were talking about how some of our lives have been touched for the better or intervened with to save our asses,
Mhm.
whether it was in law enforcement or just in regular day to day activities. And I said I had a short story, and Larry said he had a couple of stories. I actually have several stories where I thought divine intervention, whether it was an angel or just my double ganger hanging out with me, saving my ass. But this one's a quick story, but it makes absolutely no sense. It still makes me scratch my head. I don't have many of these stories, and a lot of people must say this dude is so full of shit. But no, I have no reason to lie. I don't even make this stuff up. I don't get paid for any of this crap. But so I'm a deputy, probably about. Actually, I'm a sergeant already, so I was probably about 7 years in, working with the sheriff's department. And it's summertime, and it's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon or so, and we get a crash, and it's kind of like a T-bone type of crash, and one vehicle got knocked over on its side. And we get there, and on the one vehicle, the driver's missing, the other vehicle's got a trapped female in it. And the ambulance shows up, and they get her out, and she's fine. I mean, she was banged up really bad, but she survived. But the driver was missing, and there was a couple open containers in the car. And so we run the license plate and stuff, and it comes back to somebody we kind of recognized he's in the neighborhood notorious jerk. So we kind of suspect it's him. And but he lives like 40 miles away from where the crash was at. So the first I sent deputies to his house and stuff, and he's nowhere around. So he's gone. So the idea is, look for him for a while and then do a warrant for him and find him later. And presumably he ran because he was drunk, and he had several DWIs in the past, so that's why he ran. So we look for him for a while and we leave and can't find him. So like tomorrow morning, I'm gonna do a warrant on this dude. And then about 10 o'clock at night, it was about 10:30. It was dark outside right now. It's summertime. We get a call of a lady in a subdivision saying there's a suspicious person in her yard, in her backyard. And of course, right away I'm thinking, and it's not all that far away from where this crash was at, maybe 4 miles away from there. And there's a pretty good sized subdivision back in that area. And so dispatch, tells the lady stay in the house. The cops are on the way, the usual crap. So I get hold of my buddy and I'm thinking, this is our dude. Guarantee you that's our dude. So we haul ass over there. And we pull up to the front yard, and she's got like a 2-acre piece of land with a horse barn in the background behind her house, a couple of horses running around. And as we pull up to her gate, she's standing on the porch waving a flashlight at us. And she's like, I think he's in the backyard. And I walk up to her and I said, what did you see? And she goes, well, there's a dude. There's a guy walking in my yard. I seen him. And I'm like, all right, go back in the house. We'll just clear your property and then come see you. So I walk around the house. I get to the barn. It's a really long barn. It's probably, 60, 70 feet long. It's a big old horse barn. And I'm tactically, because assuming this is the guy, and this guy's not a good guy, he will fight the cops, and he has in the past. So I'm walking right along the edge of the barn lengthways. And my partner's like one step behind me to my right. We both have our weapons drawn. And we're just kind of like tactically, meaning walking really slow and listening carefully to everything that's happening along the edge of this barn. And when you get when I get to the corner of the barn, to the end of it, I'm like 2 steps away from the end of the barn. I want to pie, meaning just step out to the side and look around the corner. But before I do this, I can't move anymore. And I look down, and I shit you not, there's a baling wire, and baling wires, I don't know if they have bales of hay in Florida. I'm sure they do, but baling wire out here is a hay bale is strapped with wire to keep it compressed. And that's not something unusual you find on a horse farm because they feed horses hay. But this baling wire is wrapped itself around both of my feet and essentially hobbled me to where I could not take another step. And it was so weird. And my partner, he sees me kind of shuffling around and he looks at me like, with this, like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? And I point down at my feet and he's like, what? How the heck did you do this? And I'm like, hold on. I'm just motioning, like, just hold on a second. So I bend down to undo the wire, and when I bend down, I managed to poke my head around the corner and look to the left, around the corner of the barn. Guess who's standing there? With a 2x4 in his hand. And I still can't move. So I bend over to undo the wire. My head pokes around the corner. Homie's standing right there with a 2x4, and I yell at my buddy. I'm like, there he is. He holsters his weapon and just tackles the guy. And I'm still busy this wire was so tangled around my foot. It wasn't just a matter of sticking my foot in a loop of wire. It was literally just like wrapped around my foot. And I didn't feel it doing that. I don't remember stepping into wire or it tying itself around my foot. I just remember walking and all of a sudden I couldn't walk. And if I'd have taken 2 more steps, I would have walked right out into that 2x4. And I'm like, what are the odds of that? How did that happen? That's not normal. Definitely not normal.
No, geez, oh Pete.
Isn't it amazing? No, and it's a head scratcher. I mean, like something saved my ass because I would have walked right into this freaking. I mean, this guy's standing like he's holding a baseball bat. He knows we're coming, and I'm sure his idea was I'm gonna clock one of these guys and run like hell. He's a younger guy. He's probably like in his late 20s, but it didn't work out for him. Saved by baling wire.
Saved by baling wire. I've got a couple of stories. I mean, mine wasn't quite as exciting as that. I was just a young cop. Gosh, I couldn't have been on the job. I was on the job probably a year tops, and I always went to lunch at a certain time. I was Delray cop at the time, and every day I went to lunch at 12:30. I was on day watch. This day, for some unknown reason, my lieutenant says, Lawson, you're going 10:40, which is our sign for chow for lunch, at 1300, 1 o'clock. Okay. I mean, I didn't think too much of it. A half hour later, they just assign you the times and you go. And so at 12:30, when I normally would have been in my sandwich shop that I always went to for lunch, instead I was sitting in a doctor's office parking lot in a traffic circle in front of me, and I was writing a report. A car pulls up in front of me on the traffic circle, and it was a 72 Monte Carlo. And we had a Bolo be on the lookout for that morning for being stolen. And I'm writing my report, and I look up and I see this car, this Malibu. Same color, same year. And the two guys in the car look at each other, look at me, look at each other,
Hmm.
and they take off. Like nuts. Paperwork goes flying. I pull out of the parking lot. US one in southern Delray Beach at that time was split up into two. US one, 4 lanes going south and a block and then going north. Got over the railroad tracks. They're in front of me now. They bust the light. I stop. I hit my lights, hit my siren button. Excuse me. Pull into the start to slowly pull into the intersection. And one lady did later said, I saw 3 lanes of traffic stop, didn't know why, and I saw an open lane, so I took it, nailed me. Bam, right in the
Hmm.
driver's door. And to make a long story short, I won't bore you with all of it. I know I'm thinking, oh man, sergeant's gonna kill me now, man. I got my car smacked. And it was a fairly new car. It was a 1980 Chrysler LeBaron, brand new. And I'm sitting there and I start graying out, yada, yada, yada. And the fire medics get there and said, "Hey, Larry, we'll put you in a neck break just to make sure you're right." What I didn't know, and this isn't so much somebody warning me or doing something to keep me from getting hurt. But what I didn't know at the time, the reason I was graying out was my head was literally floating on a broken bone. What happened
Wow.
was you've got C1 up here, then you got C2 down here, and then up through C1 from C2 is a thing called the odontoid or the atlas. It's what your head pivots on. It's what your head sits on. I broke it off.
Oh,
My
nice.
head literally was just flowing. In fact, years later, I was talking to our local medical examiner, and he said, Larry, you're the only person I've ever spoken to with that injury. Took me a minute. Took me a minute to understand what he meant. It was a
Yeah,
hangman's
yeah,
break. It was a hangman's break.
yeah.
I should have been dead. I I should have been dead immediately, especially after getting up and walking around, and my head was literally floating
Wow,
free.
that's
So, yeah, somebody was looking out for me and took care of me that day. So that's
and it healed up okay.
well, I've got wires and stuff in there, but yeah, you wouldn't if I hardly have any neck restrictions as far as movement. I moved normally, went back to police work, spent the next 39 years with a gun and badge after that, after I healed up. Wore a halo brace, those things that screw into your head. That was fun.
You got one of
Um,
those, huh?
yeah, not fun. But yeah, so that wasn't so much somebody warning me of a problem, but somebody was looking after me because I shouldn't have walked away from that one. So,
There's probably everybody you talk to has a story like that, whether they're believers in the paranormal or not, or they're just ordinary people. You can probably walk up to any random person and say, "Do you think there was ever any kind of intervention that saved your ass?"
mhm.
Almost everybody has that story.
Got something.
Every, just like the paranormal, like I said, the other day I was back at my old stomping grounds at the DA's office, where Marty hangs out. We mentioned Marty on the first show. He's the guy that worked up
Mhm.
in Dulce,
Right, right.
and has the story about all the Skinwalker stuff up there in the underground basin. So he's still not quite ready to come out because he's still currently in law enforcement and
Mhm.
probably doesn't want that rep. But privately, we were talking. I'm like, what a fascinating guy. And of course, a bunch of people were hanging out with us while we were talking, and everybody there has a story of the paranormal. They don't believe in the paranormal. They don't, but they all start out by like, well, this one time,
Mhm.
this happened to me. It's everybody has a story.
It's, in some way, shape, or form. I agree. I agree, and it goes a lot back to what people's belief systems are. I believe in God. I don't mind mentioning that. And in my little incident, I don't. I really think that somebody on the other side, God, had something else planned for me later on. So that's why they decided I didn't need to go just then.
Clearly, he was
But
thinking of the
whether
Ike and Larry show. That's probably what he was thinking of.
obviously,
He like, there are great
but
things in your future.
despite the Ike and Larry show, um, but whether
How
you believe it,
dare you?
I speak, I speak sacrilege. Um, whether you believe it's a religious conviction, whether you believe it's the paranormal, whatever you believe, there are things that happen we just cannot explain. And I think once people stop, and this is just my opinion, get out of their little boxes of it can't be paranormal because the Bible says it can't be, or whatever. Once you start opening your mind and realizing things happen that we can't explain, and there may very well be power, a force that's kind of guiding things. Once you start looking at all the things that happen, you open up your mind. I think you begin to understand more clearly
That's
that
you're
there's.
absolutely right. I think a lot of people are afraid to open their mind. It's the whole tribal thing. I belong to a
Mm,
group of people, and they all believe a certain way, and I need to believe that way too. Otherwise, I don't get accepted by them anymore.
I'm
And yeah,
ostracized, exactly.
and I have the easiest way for me. The easiest people to convince that there's something out there. Not that I'm trying to, but just to kind of see things my way, are religious people. Because although they rely heavily on their religion, but I'm like, is the paranormal so far fetched to you? You're believing in an entity that you've never seen, only heard about. Your whole life is based on a faith that there really is no proof. And but you have a hard time believing that there's something else out there, maybe? That there may be other entities out there, that there may be other spirits out there. And then they realize, like, yeah, you're right. I believe in one thing that I can't see, then I should be more open minded. I should believe in other things I can't see also.
And while I agree with you in your basic opinion there, I think there's some change going on. I can't tell you how many Baptist uh, pastors or preachers, regardless of denomination, that have a belief in the other side. My father-in-law, God rest his soul, it's gosh, August, it's going to be 2 years since we lost him. Was a Catholic deacon. I'm not Catholic myself, but he was a wonderful man. And I remember when I started doing this, married his daughter, and I was, oh, what's he going to think about me? But you know what the man said to me? He goes, we pray to spirits all the time. Of course they're out there. And he was a supporter of mine, and he was a deacon of the Catholic Church. So I do think that there are folks that understand there's stuff out there that we cannot explain and are willing to have a more open mind about it. In fact, I read one thing from the Catholic Church, and folks, if you're Catholic out there and you haven't heard about this, I know that I read it, but it wasn't handed to me by the church itself. So I'll leave it at that. But it was a document that I read. My father-in-law actually confirmed it. The Catholic Church does not even frown upon you doing paranormal investigations. What they frown on is if you do it for personal gain, if you do it just to make money for yourself or something like that. If you do it for to learn or to expand yourself, they actually kind of condone it.
Well, most Catholics believe in the spirit world. I mean, that's why they've
Well,
had
they have they
exorcists.
yeah, they have to. Um, and that, this is a whole different subject because then we start getting into the demons and what's the other side. You're not supposed to talk to the other side and things like that. Um, but we do all the time, don't we?
Yeah.
When you think about it, you do pray, so you're praying to an entity that's spiritual in nature rather.
Well,
We're going to start a huge controversy on this one, pal.
well, controversy is good. That's what this show's about. But
Yep.
but like they say, there's no atheists in foxholes. And
Hmm.
and some people understand that as, well, I need to be Baptist or Catholic. No, it just means spiritualism. There's a difference between religion and spiritualism.
I
Spiritualism is understanding there's something else out there. And religion is a man-made construct much later in history. But
mhm.
are they one and the same? Kind of. I mean, many times I find myself in situations, and I'm not religious at all, and although we grew up Catholic, but uh,
Mhm.
I quit that at a very young age. But when you're in a really bad situation, you tend to speak to the spirit world, and you may not speak to the God of your choosing, but you may speak to something out there like, oh, let me make it through this one. Please, please, something help me.
Mhm.
You know. So,
Well, before we begin any investigation, we say a prayer. Now, because I'm trying to keep it equal. I pray to God for protection. And when we finish the investigation, I thank God for taking care of us, and I pray for continued protection. Now, uh, people may choose to use a different word. I say God, uh, but there is that out there. Shoot, there's got to be. There's just too much going on that we've dealt with, that we've seen, we've experienced. I think of the house you talk about where you grew up in New Mexico. You just don't make that stuff up. I mean, I tease you a lot and give you a hard time, but
because you're
you're
an
an
asshole.
honest
But
good. Well, yeah, I am. But you're not, and I'll never say this publicly, so don't let it go to your head. You're a good, honest man, and I trust you implicitly, right?
people are going to think that I edited this part into the video now. Thank
He
you.
did. He actually paid me, but that's a different story. But I believe what you told me occurred at that house in New Mexico that you guys lived in. If that's true, how do you explain that?
Well, the great thing about that story is there's several people that can confirm it. There's my
Exactly.
sister, there's my friend Greg, who's a troll, and not as like an internet troll, but he literally looks like a troll. Should be living underneath a bridge. Um, I think he might live underneath a bridge actually. But there were several people. My buddy Martin, who was a retired APD cop, Albuquerque Police Department cop. All of them have been to that house, and all of them have experienced really weird stuff there. So
Mhm.
it's not just like me and my demented mind, or making stuff up. I mean,
Which
there's a
which it is
bunch of
demented.
people. It may have been demented back then, but when you're young, you do stupid stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, but the bottom line is to say that there's nothing out there. Now, how do you deal with it? One question I get, I guess we're getting a little off track of where we wanted to go, but you know, I don't like Ouija boards. And folks, a lot of you are going to disagree with me on this one. I don't like Ouija boards, and there's a reason for it, and it's based upon some personal experience. With with a Ouija board, you're actually calling something. Please come to me. When we conduct its investigation, and yes, this is a very thin, razor thin line. I admit it. We're not. We're just saying, hey, who's here wants to talk. I'm not calling anything, but if you're here and want to chat, I'm here to listen. To me, there's a difference. You do a Ouija board, you're asking for stuff to come in. I think that's when you get into trouble, personally. Um,
I would kind of agree with you a little bit, even though I have Ouija boards all over this place, all over this house. And next time you come over, you'll probably see them.
I
But
saw a bunch of you did one. You etched one of them last time I was
yeah,
there.
I
So
burned one onto. And I got
yeah,
that old school chair, that school
yeah,
desk from
yeah.
the '50s with a Ouija board on top. Yeah, to me that's I love that kind of stuff. But no, you're right. If and you don't need a Ouija board. I think
Oh,
you can conjure or tulpa, as they used to say. It's another way of conjuring. Is you put it out there, something might respond, and it may not be what you think it is.
oh yeah. Ain't that the truth? You don't, because we don't know what's out there. We don't know it. Nobody knows what's out there.
No. And I always thought negative energy, if there's negative energy out there, it latches on to you differently because everybody has skeletons in their closet. Everybody has done stuff that they're not exactly proud of, maybe. And
Hmm.
that negative energy will tap into that. And it almost has you compromised in a way to where you may just get drawn into something that you don't really want it to get into to begin with. So
Hmm.
yeah, if you're gonna tap into stuff like that, you better have a clear conscience and be ready to pull the plug.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you one thing. I'll just a bit of advice, and this is just what we do. I'm not saying it's the end all, the beat all, but it's what we do. Once again, after every investigation, we say nothing has permission to leave with us. Nothing can come with us. You must stay here. We give nothing permission to attach or leave with us. I believe that we have dominion over our lives, that if we take charge, that can resolve a lot of issues. Maybe not all of them, but uh, so we make a practice of that, to take charge.
You would hope that
Because
that works. I mean, I do the same thing. Whenever we leave a
Mhm,
place that's kind of sketchy, it's like, you need to stay here. You can't come home with me. But really,
mhm.
is it effective? I mean, if there's something really truly evil out there that has attached itself to you, it may not like it may be. You could say whatever the hell you want. I'm going with you.
Yeah, I mean that certainly is the case. That's what I get a charge of. I don't know if we've talked about this before, but people like to use sage to clean,
Hmm.
to cleanse. Well, I've seen people that just kind of light sage and whip it around a little bit and say everything's cool, but they don't have a clue what they're doing, nor do they have a belief system, so to
Right,
speak.
right. Exactly.
And they just whip this around. They think everything's cool. Well, now sometimes that'll start stirring up other issues if you're not careful.
And
My
it's
opinion again.
it's probably much more than just a sage. It's the whole procedure, the whole the way it's handed down through generations. But one thing most people don't even
Mm.
realize, when they wave sage around their house, they're supposed to open up a door or a window, because supposedly
Yeah, so it can get
the
out.
sage drives the spirit out of the house.
Yeah.
So if you're just waving sage around the house and don't open a door or window, are you just like really pissing them off, chasing them from corner to corner?
Hmm. See, if I'm going to do something like that, I'm going to have somebody that has some training, some experience, some background. Maybe they've it's been in their family for generations. I am not qualified to light sage and whip it around. I'm not, and I don't pretend to be. So I just do what I feel I'm capable of.
And to me, finding somebody who would be qualified with sage, would definitely have to be out here in the Southwest of Native Americans, because
Oh
they're
yeah,
the ones who used it.
shaman. Hmm.
They're the ones who use that stuff. Much like I wouldn't expect the layman to come in here and throwing holy water all over the place. I'd like it to be a real priest. If you're going to splash holy water all over my house and whip out the Lord's Prayer and stuff, it'd be nice if you were actually a priest and not some guy that works at the Dollar General.
And that's like taking somebody who works at the Dollar General and tell them to serve a search warrant in our business and how to do it and how to come out of it in one piece. I mean, really, dude?
Well, I don't know. Some of these people that work at Dollar Generals, have seen many search warrants in their past. They
The
may have not
second
written them,
that
but they've read them.
the second that came out of my mouth, I realized that was a mistake. I just okay.
Yeah, they're probably pretty up to snuff on that. But no, what we're kind of touching on is, if you're going to delve into something and claim to be an expert at it,
There's no
you
expert.
better have a pedigree of some sort, and show me, before I would use you, that you've maybe studied it or worked with somebody that's done it before, or I can't just take your word for it.
Hmm. Hmm. I'm and we've mentioned it before. I would really like to speak to somebody in the Native American world that's in law enforcement, maybe, uh, because they tend to do things. They're so much more spiritual, in my opinion. And I may be talking out of my behind
No,
here.
that's 100% correct.
And they even if they're not a shaman themselves, they've got an aunt or an uncle that's a shaman, and there's familial training in the spiritual world. I think and correct me if I'm wrong. You would know this better than I would, but there seems to be more spiritual training in the familial context in the family in the Native American world than you'll ever see in the Anglo world, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. It's passed down through the
Yeah.
generations, and it's kind of a rites of passage for those guys. I've had lots of Native friends, and I went to high school with a bunch of them, because our reservation. I went to high school in Las Lunas, New Mexico, and it butts up against the Isleta Reservation, and they didn't have a school, so a bunch of natives went to our school, and
Hmm.
made a lot of friends with them. And even back then, very spiritual people. They'd invite me to go hunting with them, and on the reservation, there's no hunting season, and there are no hunting tags. You just hunt whenever the hell you want, because it's sovereign land, and as long as you're a
Hmm.
native, they can invite you to go along with them. But very spiritual even back then already. We go out and go duck hunting or something, and they'd say a little silent prayer to the spirit and the sky and this Mother Earth and everything else. Very fascinating. I think it's cool as hell. I tend to lean, because I'm not a Christian anymore. Because I lean more towards that. To me, everything has a spirit. Everything has a energy. Trees,
Hmm.
the forest, the mountains. And the reason you pick the trees and the forest and the mountains is because it's away from all the noise of cities and the noise of modern day living. I mean, I don't know, a penthouse in New York may not be as spiritual, with all the noise and traffic and electricity and EMFs running around. And you have to be out in the nature, I think, to tap into that kind of stuff. And most natives here, especially, I don't know over there where you're at, but here, natives reservations in general are still very poor, isolated, far out in the middle of nowhere places, especially the Navajos. The
Hmm.
Navajo reservation last year was a big issue. They had like 70% of the people living on the res don't have running water or electricity.
Really?
That's crazy, in this day and age. Yeah.
Yeah, we have the both the Miccosukee and Seminole tribes. Those are the major ones anyway. There may be some smaller ones up in the north part of the state, but those are the major ones. And um, still, when you chat with them, everything is very spiritual in nature.
And that's that.
Even though
That's
they don't have that what you described, I don't think, and I could be talking out of term. I don't think that they have that quite that level of poverty here. But we're just not. We're also not as big and as desolate as the open areas of Arizona, New Mexico,
yeah.
Nevada are
I've
anyway.
also noticed though, like back eastern native tribes, to me, and it's probably pissed people off, but we love this show because it pisses people off, have been heavily influenced and heavily integrated and heavily mixed with Caucasians. When I went to Florida and went through all those places, it seems like every other person was Cherokee. I'm like, you're about as much Cherokee as I am. You're
Mm,
blonde and you have blue eyes. I'm like, oh, I'm third, 3% Cherokee. I'm like, 3%, dude, come on. You
that's
know,
kind of insulting
I'm
too,
probably
I think.
3%
But
alien. You see me bragging about it. And out here, the natives are
I'm not
still
even
much
go there.
confined. Out here, most of the natives are still very confined to their reservations, individual reservations, and we have different
Mhm.
groups. We have Navajos, we have Apaches, we have Jicarilla Apaches, we have Pueblos, Pueblo
Mm.
natives, and they all stay pretty much together. And they were really, really poor up until maybe 20 years ago when the casinos started becoming a thing. But I think the
Mhm.
Navajos just built a casino first time ever a couple years ago. They refused
Uh,
casinos, but then they've
mm,
seen how the other reservations are prospering. Because like
mhm.
the Isleta reservation I mentioned earlier that was budding up, it's between Las Lunas and Albuquerque. Those people were living poor, third world country poor. And they were
Mm.
one of the first ones in New Mexico to put up a casino. And it instantly changed their lives. Suddenly they're all, not suddenly, but within a couple of years, nicer houses, newer cars, electricity, water, all that stuff started rolling in. And now if you go to Isleta, it's a pretty nice place.
Mm.
It's as good as any other place. So the casinos have done a world of good to them. I mean, they're slowly getting even with the white man. That's they'll tell you that. They have no qualms
Can't
about it.
fault that. Yeah, can't fault that way of thinking at all. But
And now
anyway,
we're surrounded by casinos now. They're all over the place.
oh, Florida. Yeah, we're just that Florida was a kind of a holdout for a while, with the exception of the reservations, the Miccosukee, both Miccosukee and Seminole nations have had them here, but they've really started expanding our area too.
Yeah.
So, but that's a just a whole new discussion. Anyway,
And another, while we're on reservations, talking about the natives, because the ones I've dealt with always have been very very nice to me. Always, in a
oh yeah,
professional manner in the
oh,
law enforcement world, we dealt with a lot of them because the fact is that the Navajo reservation is probably 200 miles away from where I live.
mhm.
But the Navajo reservation is a dry reservation. I think most reservations are, but especially Navajo. I mean, no alcohol sales allowed, period. So that drives a lot of the men off the reservation. And if you get up to places like Gallup or Farmington, Grants, New Mexico, or Cuba, New Mexico, it's as bad as the homeless problem is in Oregon or Seattle, except for these are all natives off the reservation that are severely drug addicted or alcoholics, and they just can't get back on the reservation. They're all over the place, and
Mm.
that's mostly the ones we used to deal with because they sometimes venture all the way down here. And but even then, very spiritual people. When I worked in the prison system, there was always white people were bank robbers, Hispanics were drug dealers, and the natives were murderers. Almost every native that you've seen in the prison system in New Mexico was in there for murder. I'm like,
Really?
yeah, I know that's kind of way off topic, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty much how it was.
Mm.
I'm like
Well,
crazy. So the point is, they're very spiritual, nice people, but if you push them around long enough, they'll kill you.
well, I think that could go with all kinds of folks.
Yeah.
But you're mentioning the prison, kind of moving. I really want to go to the New Mexico prison. What's the name of the prison there that's so haunted?
That's the state penitentiary in Santa
State
Fe.
Penitentiary?
It's
Yeah.
closed. Yeah, it's been closed since, or at least 20 years now. At least
Wow.
20, 25 years. It was the place of the bloodiest prison riot, not the biggest,
That's
but
not
the.
a ghost, by the way. That's Cooper back there. See, whoa, whoa, Cooper.
Are
Say
you
hi,
having an
Cooper.
earthquake?
Yeah, see,
Aw.
say hi, Cooper. She
Just sitting there
just
watching.
came. Yeah,
Yeah, that was the
I,
place of the bloodiest prison riot in
yeah.
American history. Not the biggest. There's been bigger ones, but the bloodiest because they broke into the
Yeah.
infirmary and stole all the drugs, and they were all high as a kite from all kinds of weird prescription meds. And
Hmm.
they were actually decapitating people, sticking their heads on mop handles and marching
Yeah.
them around. And they got into the maintenance building and got a cutting torch out and took that cutting torch over to I think it was cell block 3, where they kept all the protective custody prisoners, aka
Hmm.
like child molesters, that kind of thing,
Hmm.
and promptly cut those guys out of their cells because they couldn't figure out how to get the cells open because they're controlled through the main station, the central control. And so they just took the cutting torch and cut the doors open and yanked these guys out and killed them with a torch. Several good books written on that. I think Hell's Kitchen is one of them, and there's another one. One was written by an inmate, and one was written by a corrections officer back in those days.
You go back, you think about it for a second, Ike. If you're of the belief that energy from that type of emotional trauma and trauma-filled event keeps spirits or energy there, you gotta believe that place is most prisons, but that place in particular has got to be just chock full of residual energy and horrors from what occurred during that event.
It was a tragedy all the way around. I mean, there's
Yeah.
people say the grounds themselves were very freaking haunted and spiritual back long before the prison even showed up because it used to be part of some native tribe that lived out there.
Mm.
But the way it was handled was horrible. The National Guard was called out and they had the perimeter surrounded, but none of them had any live ammo, which seems to be the case. I've seen more than once in my career where the military shows up, but they don't hand out any live ammo. They're just running around with empty weapons. I'm like, what's the point of that? But anyway, first the state police shows up, and the state police is like, we're not going in there. This place is out of control. And they call the National Guard. They show up, and they're just around the perimeter like, well, what are we supposed to do? And there's corrections officers in there that can't get out. And they're being raped, and they're being tortured, and there's all kinds of bad stuff happening, but nobody wants to go in. It's almost like Uvalde in Texas at the school, you know,
Well,
like
I was just thinking the same thing.
nobody wants to go in. And this went on and on and on, and so many people got hurt and killed because nobody wanted to, you know, they didn't want to go in. And I'm like, wow,
And that's not what we're paid to do. We're paid to go in. But
yeah,
that's a different topic. I won't even.
yeah. Well, that I think that goes without saying for us old school cops. We didn't even think about it. If something
No,
happened, you
no,
just
we didn't.
reacted
You do.
instinctively and just do what you do. And then when it's done, you're like, oh, that was probably stupid, but you did it anyway.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of the younger guys that are that way, but we just hear about the folks that don't. But it's a.
That was a sad situation in Uvalde. And
Mm.
you know, our chief in Albuquerque just did a stupid thing. And I called it right off the bat because the mayor's calling him a hero, typical political puppet. Uh, the chief is in he has a unmarked unit, which is a big Dodge pickup truck. He's got his wife with him, which I guess the policy allowed for him to drive around with his wife in his unit. And he
Uh,
pulls up to an intersection, looks over, and there's two homeless people fighting. And one of the homeless person pulls out a firearm and starts shooting. Now the chief claimed they were shooting at him. Like, no. But the chief panics and just floors the truck, runs through an intersection, and T-bones a civilian and puts that guy in the freaking intensive care. I mean, that guy was jacked up. He was driving an old Mustang, like a 70s model Mustang, and just T-bones his Mustang. And his response was, well, they were shooting at me, and I had to get out of there. I'm like, if that was me, I would have come out the passenger door with my Kimber 45, and I would have yelled out, come get you some, and there would have been some bodies laying out there. Just acting not to be a badass, but I think every cop I've ever worked with would have done the exact same thing.
that's we go towards
Yeah.
the problem, not away from it. Yeah.
This guy
Mm.
runs an intersection red light and T-bones somebody because there's some shooting going on 100 feet away or 150 feet away from him that's not even directed at him. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Turn your pickup towards him, run him over, do something. So yeah, he's
Mm.
now he's being investigated by, I'm guessing the I think state police or somebody's looking into it because at first when it came out, he was just painted as this giant hero. Like, oh, I'm like,
What, running?
what was the heroic part that you exactly did?
He
Oh,
was
good.
running.
Yeah.
I guess you could argue his wife was with him, and he was wanting to protect her, but I
That's
don't
why you
know.
don't take your wife with you. I think I took my wife with me one time, and it was on forest patrol because we had a contract with the Forest Service to patrol the forest
Mm.
as overtime pay. So it was 4 hour blocks. So you basically spend 4 hours driving around the freaking national forest and looking at
Tootie.
squirrels and deer and stuff, and nothing really happened out there. And so,
Oh, you can't say that though. Look at the what is that? The guy with the Forest Service. I can't think of his name now. Has a whole book on missing 411.
oh
I
yeah,
guess
and
it's
Dave
called.
Politis.
To place, yeah. So you can't say nothing ever
Oh
doesn't
no, no,
happen
no.
in
And
in
my
the.
wife totally understood. We had a protocol. I said, if you
Mhm.
can get out of the car, get out of the car, go the opposite way, and let me handle what's going on. Or if not, get down on the floor and stay there and don't come up
Yeah.
until it's over with. And she knew the risk. She knew.
Mm.
But,
Yeah.
she had to be with her daddy. How could you not be?
Okay. I got no comment to that. I
You
got
don't?
nothing. I got nothing.
I stump you on a regular basis.
Yeah,
But
you
anyway,
do.
I don't
Yeah.
know how we got off on that subject, but yes, Chief Bad did a stupid thing. Cowardism. There used to be actually for our New Mexico DPS oversees all certifications in New Mexico. So DPS is like the governing body, the academy, it's everything, and they're in
I heard
charge of
it's
your tag, whether you're county, local, whatever you are.
Florida's got the same thing.
Yeah,
FDLE. Yeah.
and they actually used to have, and I think they got rid of it, but you could actually be called up to DPS for a review for cowardism.
Yeah.
If your
Yeah.
chief or
Cowardice.
anybody sends you up there, that's where you're going, and they would actually investigate it and determine what to do. And they may suspend you for 2 months. They may pull your ticket for 6 months. They may suspend you for life. That's not, you're not cut out to be a cop. And whether your sheriff likes it or not, that's not his call.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of things have changed since you and I started in this business,
Yeah. Yeah.
my friend.
Well, we actually
So,
had a statute when I first became a cop out here for dueling. It was a misdemeanor for dueling and cohabitation. I used to
oh
love that
yeah.
one because I used to
Yeah.
throw that one in everybody's face and all the other officers that weren't married but living with somebody. I'm like,
Yeah.
I ought to just make case law and cite you for cohabitation.
Yeah.
Those
We
are
had that here too.
Yeah, I never got to cite any of those, although I really wanted to, because I wanted to work its way up through the commands and into the bigger courts. And I'm like, really? Do we still need a law that's cohabitation? You have to be married to live together? Are you serious?
Yeah, most of that stuff's gone now, though. They've
I think
kind of, kind of,
they got rid of both of
kind of,
those like
kind of,
halfway through
kind
my
of
career.
getting rid of it. So,
And stupid laws. I mean, the Southwest still has these archaic laws that are held over from the 1800s, spitting on sidewalks,
the laws, yeah, yeah,
stupid stuff. You can't ride
yeah,
a horse drunk.
yeah. Now, speaking of crazy laws, I think it's in the state of New York that it is against the law for a realtor to sell a house. And if it's not New York, folks, you know which state it is. Please tell us, but I think it's New York. If you sell a house knowing or have reason to believe that it's haunted, you're in violation of the law.
There's,
Did you know that?
I think there's several states like that now.
I do that.
I think New Mexico has a law where you have to disclose if a crime occurred in that house, like a murder
Yeah,
or anything
yeah,
like that. Yeah,
yeah. So if you're not worried about some sort of residual something sticking around, why would that have to be an event? Why would it
yeah,
have to be a law? So you gotta wonder. Some folks may have had some experiences like that,
yeah,
but
yeah.
crazy laws.
Yep. So we were talking a little bit about Skinwalker Ranch.
Uh-huh.
Actually, what we're going to touch on next is egos in the business because we touched on that last
Mm,
episode a little bit. And
a little.
we all have egos, I think.
Well, we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't want to get out there and share with stuff. I mean, you gotta,
I just do
everybody
it.
has a little bit.
I just do it to have some friends. Since I retired, I have no friends. So in hopes somebody,
And you do
if you're
now?
if you yes, I consider this
Okay.
guy Larry Lawson kind of, I don't know, he's a weirdo. But speaking of that, if you're in New Mexico and you want to go on some kind of adventures like ghost hunting or something like that, or some kind of weird stuff, email me. We'll see what we can do.
And I'm gonna interrupt you there right now. Do it because those gold mines are freaking unbelievable. So if you get the opportunity. I'm I was hoping to get down there this spring. Looks like it's going to be later this summer, but I'm going back to my buddy Ike's house, and we're going to do some more mine investigations. So
You may be
take
walking
advantage.
along and looking down and seeing this giant gold nugget. And that's probably the last thing you remember because then I'll probably beat you over the head with a shovel, take your nugget and run. And then you'll be part of the spirit world of the mines. No, just kidding.
Well, no, you're not.
Yeah, maybe.
So anyway, yeah, egos. Uh, it's the bane of any profession, whether you're a doctor, lawyer, cop. And I'm certainly uh, not to degrade what we do, but we certainly it is not a profession. But egos seem to hurt every every endeavor that man does, whether it be war, politics, police work, paranormal investigation.
Lots of egos.
Ego seems to be the bane of it, and it keeps us from going forward. In the cop business, for example, there was a period of time where you could not, if you were investigating a big case down here in Florida, and I found out that it was connected to Moriarty, New Mexico, I wouldn't say anything to that Chief Enzi in Moriarty because
Dick.
I don't want him to. Yeah, he is, because I don't want him to get any of my limelight. I don't want
Exactly.
him to get any of the credit for what I'm doing.
He would say things
And
like, Florida, you guys aren't even real cops. Just keep your ass out of New Mexico. That's my case now. That's something like Enzi would say. I heard bad things about him.
yeah, I definitely have. But what I'm getting at is I think we've in the law enforcement profession, I think we've gotten through. It's always there, but I think we've gotten through most of it. But I don't see us getting past that in the paranormal world. I don't see us getting past. Oh, I can't give anybody my evidence or where I got this because then they're going to come and start investigating it, and now I won't be relevant anymore
Right. Right.
because somebody and I I think the reason it's such a big issue with me is I don't see us getting forward, finding the answers that we all seek until we begin to work together a little bit better.
I think in the paranormal world, it's mostly driven by money, money and just
Oh
fame that
yeah.
comes with it. And
Oh yeah. I think that's with any of it.
like in the cop world, nobody cares. I always told people, I've worked for a living long before I became a cop, and actually have to have results. In the private sector, people demand results or you get shit canned.
Mhm.
Getting a government job is the easiest thing ever. They give you a
That's
pay, they give you a car, they give you a gun, they give you a gun, everything, and it's really hard to get fired from a government job because they have all these fail-safe protections in there. Government job is easy, people. Get a job in the government, good retirement. Look at me, I'm sitting here talking shit and I'm retired. Uh, easy work. In the paranormal world, a lot of them are in it for the money. All these shows you see on TV, it's a competitive world, and I think that's why
yeah,
they
but I
keep
don't think
everything secret.
but I don't think a lot of folks that are in the paranormal world, sans the big names and the big shows. I'm sure that's different. But your person that's making an appearance in some of these shows, there's no money there. So therefore, the only thing they have is fame to get
Pure
their
ego.
15 minutes.
Yeah,
And
pure
that's where
ego.
the pure ego comes in. And some of them will sell themselves out. Now, I get it. You go on a TV show, you basically sell the rights to your story and they get to tell it. Okay, I get that. Um, but some people just keep doing it and they're willing to make stuff up or exaggerate or whatever just to get that 15 minutes. But that then finds its way down to just us at this level doing investigations, talking about what we found, trying to figure out what the problem is. But because Ike doesn't want to tell me what he found
Yeah,
because he's afraid that maybe I'll use that same technique and get more notoriety. And I'm just giving an example.
yeah,
That's what's killing us. That's
yeah.
what's killing us.
On the small scale and on the big scale, I've developed, and this causes a lot of riffles too, because he's more hated than liked. Is one thing I respect about Zach Bagans, and this is common knowledge on the internet. He does not participate in any of the paranormal talks and conferences and like all the other ones do. Every single one of them does talks for money, goes to these seminars. And Zach Bagans just right from the get go said, I'm not interested in that. He goes, I experienced what I experienced when I was young, and I'm doing this. And, he's got his haunted museum thing going
Which he
on. Just
doesn't make any money with, right?
I don't know. He probably does,
Yeah.
but he doesn't get involved in any of the nonsense out there.
Hmm.
Everybody else is so competitive; they're just constantly trying to put each other down, or stealing each other's ideas. He does his own thing, and I respect it. He's a showman. I mean, obviously, he's a showman on steroids. But besides that, is it fake? Some of it fake. It's got to be. It's a TV production. So, I've experienced that. Not that I've been on TV. I've been in a movie once, but
I saw that movie, by the way.
was it good or bad?
It was bad.
Well,
Um,
I told you. I
but you
tried to
didn't.
warn you.
The only reason I knew it was you because yeah, it was your voice, and I
Yeah,
could see the beard,
yeah.
but I couldn't see you. I couldn't see you, but you could tell it was you.
You should have put it on a bigger screen then. I'm there.
Was your full face on the because I said, well, watch it on the computer,
I don't
and it
remember.
just like
I don't remember.
it just kind of cut your face in half or in a quarter.
Yeah, I don't remember. I'd have to look it up and see if I can find it. What did you find it on?
YouTube called Bear, Bar. You want to see Ike? It's right towards the end. It's on a movie called Bear, Bare.
Autographs will be available at the end of this. Speaking of egos, famous actor here. So no, but really now, I'm not like in love with Zach Bagans, but as far as his show goes, I have a lot of respect for that guy because I've read behind the scenes of his history and stuff, and he has a degree in cinematography or making movies.
Mhm.
He's not a dummy, and he knows how to be sensational, and he is sensational, and but because
Well,
he
if I,
doesn't participate in all of these little money making schemes that everybody else is doing on the TV world, you know, uh,
Mhm.
I kind of respect that.
Yeah.
Does he have an ego?
Well,
Hell yeah, he's got an ego.
well, he got the whole his whole pilot show that shot him to stardom. Taken it was at the Goldfield,
Cool. Yeah.
and he was doing that, I believe, as part of a project for school to get his degree. I could be wrong, but I think that's how that.
And I've read something. I don't remember where I read this, but apparently when he was younger, he had an apparition appear in his room, and that's how he got into the paranormal. He was laying in bed, and an apparition of a female showed up in his room. I think he was in a hotel motel or something, and he said it was real. I wasn't dreaming, and that sparked his whole interest in the paranormal.
I've never heard what it was. I've always heard that he didn't want to talk about it, which once again you do have to respect. I'm not a big fan of the show, but you got to respect that. He doesn't want to sensationalize what happened to him. Um, the other oh gosh, from Ghost Hunters,
Jason Hawes and
Jason had an event that got him started on it, and he doesn't talk about it. So you have to respect that. I mean, that would be something that they could use to help, and they don't. So I do have to respect it.
another guy that's coming up really quick and probably producing more shows than anybody is Jack Osborne.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of shows coming out, and he's also very legit because
Hmm.
he's already worth $400 million. I mean, he doesn't need to do this,
Thank you, Ozzy.
yeah, for any other reason except for that he's really really curious about the paranormal.
Hmm.
And I was
I've seen
watching
some of his stuff. It seems
it's
pretty
good.
good. I'm a big fan of a guy named Brian Cano. Brian
Kano.
Cano was, yeah, he's pretty well known in many of the areas. He was with a Haunted Collector, a TV show called Haunted Collector years
Oh yeah, I
ago.
know who you're talking about.
Yeah, class act. So and truly one of the folks in the field that I think has a handle on. So there's a lot of good folks out there. A lot of good folks. Unfortunately, TV does give them a kind of a
Yeah.
bad rap
The,
at
the,
times. But
I was I was watching the Osborne show on YouTube. I think it was yesterday or something. It's kind of interesting because it has Ozzy and his wife and his daughter and Jack, and they just sit there and talk about their childhood and stuff, and sometimes
Mhm.
they touch into the paranormal. Actually, quite often. And but Jack mentioned something that I've never really thought of, and I was like, that's pretty interesting conspiracy. He said there's 30 million people in LA County, or I don't know if it was 30 million, but it's some crazy ass number of just people that live in LA County. And on average, 60,000 people die a year in LA County. He goes, you will never see a funeral. You go by a graveyard, you never see people at a graveyard at a funeral. He goes, what is happening to all these people? There's 60,000 people dying a year in LA County, which is the greater LA area, which is Beverly
Hmm.
Hills and all that, Brentwood and all
Yeah,
that shit.
yeah.
He goes, the mortuaries should be just popping like crazy. There should be like, they should be each doing hundreds of embalmings or whatever the heck they're doing a day with that amount of people dying. He goes, you never see it. He goes, I drive through LA all the time. He doesn't live in LA anymore. He lives in Idaho now. But he goes, when I was living in LA, I used to think about that all the time. And I started asking people, I'm like, where are all these people going? Where are they burying them all? I mean, granted, probably half of them or more are being
Cremated.
whatchamacallit,
Cremated.
cremated now.
Yeah.
That still leaves in a crazy, 30,000 people being stuck in the ground somewhere. And these graveyards should be growing
So what's
like
his po-
exponentially.
so what's his point? What's
He
he?
doesn't know. He was like throwing it out as a question to everybody else, like
Uh,
where are all these people being buried? What is going on? The graveyard should be expanding at an exponential rate
mhm.
with that amount of people dying. I'm
Hmm.
like, that's a damn good question.
It
And
is
it's
an
probably not
interesting
just LA,
question.
it's any big city. How does New York handle it? I think New York has 9 million people. With
Hmm.
9 million people, you got to assume that there's a pretty good number of people that die every freaking day, whether from old age or crashes or whatever the heck's going on.
Hmm.
Where are
I
these
don't
people
know.
going?
I don't know.
Are we
I
sticking
don't
on
know.
top of each other like they do in other countries, where the cemeteries are full?
Oh
They're
yeah.
just like, all right, you've been in there long enough. Exhume them, throw them out, put the next one in.
Yeah.
You get a
I
3 year
do
lease
not
on your
know.
grave.
At least it's up. You want to resign?
Get out.
Uh, yeah. But I don't know. Good, excellent question.
That's a good question, I thought.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it
'cause
is.
that's a huge number. I mean, I haven't looked into it. I probably will because I think the first thing as a cop I'm thinking is how many mortuaries are in the greater LA area, Torrance County, not Torrance County, LA County. Are there like 5,000 mortuaries out there? Well, then they could handle it. If there's a ton of mortuaries out there, then each one gets like 3 or 4 bodies a day. That's probably doable.
Do you recall not too many years ago, and we're still getting farther away from your other subject with the Skinwalker, um, but did you? It was a spate of them a number of years ago where they were finding mortuaries, funeral homes, where they really weren't disposing of the bodies, at
Yes,
least properly. Ooh,
there's one we just talked about like 2 or 3 episodes ago in
yeah,
Colorado, where
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the stench tipped off some people walking
That's
by
right.
like this
Yeah.
place really stinks. And I
Hmm.
can't remember how many. He had like 100 or 200 bodies in the house that they've
Yeah.
never
Oof.
actually got rid of. I'm like, could you imagine that going on in LA? Yeah, I got 20,000 bodies in the back of my garage.
Mm.
It's a good one to think about. I mean, I'm sure there's a logical, reasonable explanation, but I'd like to see the cemeteries. How many cemeteries are there in that area? How full are they? And how quick are they growing? Those are all good questions, I think. Kind of off topic with the ego thing, but
Yeah, a little bit. How do
what
we get there? I don't
exactly,
even know.
what is the definition of ego? I don't have my phone here, but ego's got to be the way I would describe
Well,
ego is your self worth, your wanting to be. There's got to be a
ego definition. Hold on. The part of the mind that mediates. This is from Oxford. Okay. The part of the mind that mediates between the conscious and the unconscious and is responsible for reality testing and a sense of personal identity. Um, that's the psychoanalysis end of it. Philosophy, a conscious thinking subject. What does ego mean in a person? It's their own sense of self-worth. Self-worth.
Yep, just like I just said,
So,
self worth and so like I said, everybody has ego. If you didn't have ego, you wouldn't comb your hair, you wouldn't grow this
mm,
fantastic looking beard I got. It's ego. It's your self identity, self worth. That's me. That's
mm,
basically what you're saying. That's me. Look at me.
yeah,
So I think everybody has egos. I think some
to
people's
some
egos are just
extent.
out of control. That's what they say about psychedelic drugs. Taking psychedelic drugs. The first thing it does is it gets rid of your ego. And like I've never done psychedelics, but they say once your ego is gone for that moment of time, you see things completely different. Because then it's no longer about you. Then
Hmm.
you're in touch with everything else. Interesting.
Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. It is. Hmm. Well,
But
we were, sorry, go ahead.
on our level, the small fish in the paranormal world that have these small channels and stuff. Lots of egos too. Lots of egos because
Oh
it's
God.
competitive. Everybody wants to be seen more than the other, I think.
Well, why are we doing this show?
I often wonder about that.
Yeah.
Like, why
Well, no, well,
exactly am
no,
I doing
no,
this?
no, well, think about this for a second. I mean, you and I both like to just talk about the subject and share our opinions and we don't agree on everything, but we talk about it. So I think that's part of it. But why do we have to do the show? Because we want to share it with other people. In a sense, that's part of ego. Um, you know, so you're right. Everybody's got it at some level. The question is, what do you do with it? I mean, my hope is that we get to share some things with people and learn from others also.
Exactly.
Uh, eh, but there's still got to be ego
My my
attached
uh,
to it
my
somewhere.
idea of sharing this, and the reason I do it, is because I know there's people like me out there, and it gives them
Oh
something to
God.
listen to
Oh, whew,
that are like-minded. If
yeah.
you're like-minded, you've experienced stuff. You're a retired cop or a working cop, and you've had paranormal experiences. You're damn good looking like me. We all have something in common, and now you have a channel to go to, and maybe you listen to it. Maybe you agree or disagree,
Hmm.
but you have an outlet to go to, and maybe just have some fun. For me, it's all about fun. I'm doing this because I enjoy doing it.
I do too. And I mean, we wouldn't do it if we didn't enjoy it because we certainly ain't making no money doing it. So
No,
it's about fun. It's about having some fun. So
now
I
egos.
agree with you.
We all have egos. I mean, I have an ego. I'm secretly down deep. I might think, well, maybe another producer will watch this show and say, we like this guy, and then maybe put me on a show somewhere. It's happened twice
So,
before. Didn't
so
pan out.
dump that Lawson dude and come on, we'll
Yeah,
make you
yeah,
famous.
yeah. You're right, Lawson guy. Just get rid of him.
Just tell him you're not doing it anymore. He won't know the
Yeah,
difference.
he won't know. You just say you're sick. You're tired. He won't recognize you. We got a show for you. It's called Bear.
Oh, it was bad. It was
It
bad.
wasn't that damn bad. Come on now. But anyway, it didn't matter. Thanks to Judge Bobby, who was the chief at the time.
Oh, he's the one that let you do that. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Anyway,
Way to
yeah.
get back at him, Bob.
So egos, we all have them. Can they get out of control? Absolutely. I'd like to think both of us are pretty level people. I mean, I have an ego and I talk a lot of crap, but that's just how I am, and I've been that way all my life. But a person whose ego gets out of control will squash, step on people, anything to make
Mhm.
himself look better,
Exactly.
or
Narcissistic.
look at me, look what I've done, look what I can do, that kind of crap, and constantly need to be stroked. That's where the stroking the
Mhm.
ego comes from. Always need to be reaffirmed, like, oh my God, you're the best. Nobody's ever said that to me, except my wife. But nobody's. I crack myself up sometimes. Uh, yeah, I think that kind of encompasses the whole ego thing, and it's in all aspects of life, whether it's the paranormal or whatever the hell you're doing. You might be the best freaking stock boy at Walmart, and you have an ego. Like, I can stock shit better than you can.
And don't we kind of also encourage our kids to be the best that they can be?
Mm-hmm.
And they can't do it if they don't believe it. So there's
Mm-hmm.
a place for ego under certain things. Now, ego also comes into play in this field when we're watching how people do things. And you and I, as a cop,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a TV show that's a fiction like CSI. Now, I'm
Oh
not
God,
talking about the entertainment value of CSI, but if you folks really believe that that's how crime scene investigation works,
you have no clue.
and when I was running the police academy, I used to have folks all the time, oh, I want to be a CSI because they watched the show and they thought they kicked in doors, served search warrants, interrogated the suspects. And when I had said, no, it's not what you do as a CSI. But we have egos because we're saying, no, that's not how it's done. We know how it's done. And there's shows out there now that we still do that too. Don't watch a World War II aviation movie with me. Don't.
I
It's
do it all the time.
yeah.
Aviation, maybe not so much World War II because I was on the other side, but cop movies, the stupid crap you see, it drives me nuts. This happens every show, and I've pointed this out to my wife, and she sees it now too. Doesn't matter what cop show it is. It could be a movie, it could be just a weekly program or whatever. But whenever a police car pulls up, it goes whoop, and whenever a police car leaves, it has to go whoop. Hit the little siren thing. I'm like, nobody does that. Why would you pull up and go whoop before you get out of your car? Why? But yet every freaking show, it could be produced by
What
Scorsese.
and what sound is that again? I didn't quite hear you.
You heard what it was. It was like, whoop.
Okay, I thought so.
Every freaking show does it. So it's one producer copying another producer. It's like, I guess that's what happens. I'm like, please stop doing that. It drives me nuts.
Um,
People talking on a microphone without clicking the button, you know, or they're holding
I
it
saw
backwards.
I
The
saw a
microphone's
show
facing
that
outwards.
I saw a show last night. It was policing in another country, and that's all I'll say about it. And the uh, the lead character pulled a gun and was holding somebody at bay with a 45. And I'm going to shoot you if you move. There was just one problem. The hammer was forward.
You see that all the time.
You ain't shooting anybody with a governmental 45 with a hammer forward. You're not
If you
shooting
carry
anybody.
45, which I did for almost my entire career, it's
Locked and
cocked and
locked.
locked. That's how you carry it. And people get like, oh my God, the hammer's back. You darn right it is.
Yeah. But what about watching shows involving the paranormal where they're investigating, where they're trying to come up with answers through deductive reasoning? And you and I are both detectives. That's what we did a good portion of our careers. And you're looking and saying, why in the yellow hell did you do that?
Yeah. Yeah. And this kind of leads into what we're going to talk about next on Skinwalker Ranch. Because supposedly they're surrounded by experts. And these are top notch government experts. And I'm like, me, as this small town retired cop, can figure this out. What the hell are you guys doing? So we're talking specifically, or I'm specifically talking about Skinwalker Ranch season 5, which came out last year. But since I'm a broke ass and I have Hulu, I just got the opportunity to watch it now. And although it's very entertaining, I love that show. And like I said before, because the terrain and the scenery is much like New Mexico, and we've encountered pretty much all the same crap they have on their show here in New Mexico. And is that stuff real that's happening there? I believe it 100%. Are they investigating it? 100%. Was the government, when Bigelow had the place, was the government involved out there for, I don't know, 20 years or something? Yes, that's documented. There's no doubt about the government. The government went out there for some reason, and there was weird stuff happening there. And prior to the government being out there, the ranch people that owned it, I can't think of the names right now. I should have done some research. Ill prepared as usual. But did weird things happen to them? 100%. Did they see a giant dog? Yes. Did they shoot at it? Yes. Did they see orbs? Yes. Would shit fall off the kitchen shelves? Would the groceries restock themselves? Yes. All that stuff was documented years ago, and I think that was probably why the government's like, we need to go over there and kind of like see what the hell's going on. Because basically the original owners abandoned the place. I mean, they sold it, but they're like, we need to get out of here whether we sell it or not. There's
Mm-hmm.
tons of books on it, and I've read most of them. And they were pretty spooked. Is that real? I believe it because I lived in a house just like that, where we were like super glad when the place burnt down. Like, thank God now I finally have a reason to move. So, did that really happen? I think so. What I have a problem with is now in episode 5, especially towards the end, they have a bunch of government experts giving and not giving their opinions. Now, the government was involved at that place before, and now they're involved again, even though they're private contractors. If I was Fugel, who's the guy, Brandon Fugel, who owns the place now, is also worth close to $1 billion, would I want government experts or private sector experts that used to work for the government on my ranch? No, because you couldn't trust them. They could all be plants. They could all be over there to see because they're accusing the government all the time of helicopters flying by. These guys could be plants.
Well,
And they
let me
probably
interrupt.
still.
Let me interrupt you on that a little bit. And I am not for a second the physicist that's on there. My mind just went blank.
Taylor.
Taylor, Dr. Taylor. Think he's a good guy. I think he's sincere. But wasn't he part of an official UFO government organization and didn't tell the folks there until the
Yeah.
next season how truth? I mean, that's an example.
The,
I'm
the,
not saying.
the UAP
I'm not
task force.
suggesting he did. Yeah,
And is
I'm
that
not saying
why?
he did anything wrong, but
I am.
still.
Is that why he's only launching freaking rockets on every episode? He's like, we got to make a show. That's not really why I'm here, but we got to look like we're doing something. So I'm just going to keep launching rockets every freaking day like some idiot on 4th of July. I mean, he could be just as culpable. He could still be secretly providing information to the government. And he's just there appeasing everybody, like, you're the expert, you're a doctor, you have a doctorate. I'd be very cautious if I was Bigelow. I'm like, because,
Bigelow, you mean Fugel?
a Fugel, because
Yeah.
I've experienced this in real life. The worst people, not the worst people as in bad people, but private contractors for the U.S. government have it made. Because as private contractors, you're away from the government. You can't violate civil rights as a private contractor. That was the great thing. As a cop, you have to always tiptoe around because you might violate somebody's rights. But if you're a private contractor working for the government, you can do whatever the hell you want. And the government just washes their hands. We're like, well, we didn't endorse that, and we didn't. So you have a lot of leeway, as in like Blackwater did, during its days.
Yeah, I
You're
think
you're out of the umbrella of the government doing things, and you have more authority. More. I'm surprised the Navy SEALs aren't all private contractors now. That'd be so much better. Give them the same training. They buy all private shit anyway. The Navy SEAL, the U.S. Navy SEALs, everything they wear is from the private sector. They don't wear issued shit at all. Everything's specially made for them. Hell, if they were all contracted to the U.S. government, they could get away with all kinds of crap. Not that they were anyway. But
and I think in some ways that's changing. I'm not an expert in that field, but I think some of that's changing. But I see a little bit differently in that, I watch techniques, investigative techniques. Now, I'm not a scientist, so therefore, a scientist doing a scientific investigation may differ a little bit from me doing a criminal investigation. Okay, I don't doubt that. But there are just some things that I've seen on a lot of these shows that I would maybe question somebody differently, maybe continue on uh, with a line of with a theory until I had fleshed it out. And sometimes I don't see that. And I grant you, a lot of times it's because the TV production crew's got to cut it short. Hey, we've got an hour show and we don't need all this other stuff. But still, there are some just techniques that I think they would benefit from by having folks like us, folks that have done criminal investigations, going over their evidence, going over their techniques that I think might produce some better evidence. But
now,
that's just me.
supposedly they do, because I read the history on Fugel
Uh-huh.
and what's going on, and Fugel made his money in real estate, commercial real estate,
Right.
and that guy Dragon, who's chief of security, was his mission partner because they're
Right.
Mormons.
Mormons,
And
right.
then the other guy, the redheaded guy, he
Hmm.
was in law enforcement. He doesn't say he's not retired. It doesn't say how long. For all we know, he only did 2 years and didn't cut it. But he's supposedly their law enforcement expert. And I'm
And he
like,
may be. He may be. I don't know.
but yeah. And also, the autobiography I read on Fugel just the other day, did touch very little on Skinwalker. It's more about himself, ego. But towards the end, he talks about Skinwalker, and his directive was, one, he doesn't want to destroy the area by bulldozing it all up, which I get because he's a
Goes
real
to
estate
him.
guy. He doesn't want his property ruined. And two
Yeah.
is that he has exclusive rights of what gets shown and what's not, what they don't air, and that they will not fabricate or make anything up, and that he's the
I
sole
believe that.
proprietor of the show.
Yeah,
So,
I
and I've
believe
read
that.
that before, and yeah, I believe that too. So basically, the movie crews or the filming crews are just there to document what they're doing. They're not supposed to be
Hmm.
directing or suggesting or anything else. They're just there shadowing and documenting everything
Hmm.
that's going on. That's a great premise if it was all true, because all these scientists he have, because they give way too much credit to Dr. Taylor. I mean, he seems like a great guy.
Bright guy. Bright guy.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
seems very, very bright, but he also seems very shady. I mean, when you can not disclose for a year that you're working for the UAP task force because of a non-disclosure agreement and top secret clearance and all this stuff, but yet pretend you're 100% invested in the Skinwalker Ranch, isn't that pretty much deceptive? I mean,
I'm
if
a
I was
little
Fugel, I'm
surprised.
like, you're out of here. You're a lying piece of
I'm a
shit.
little.
Get out.
I'm a little surprised that he didn't get. I mean, I saw Dragon once again. It's TV. You don't know.
Yeah,
You don't know how it's been cut or. But if I was Dragon, I'd have been pissed.
yeah, you're
I mean,
chief security and you let that
yeah, yeah, I'd have been pissed at
loser.
that. Yeah. But once again, we don't know the whole story, so I don't want a Monday morning quarterback. But I'll tell you, one area is they never seem to go far enough. And this is not just Dr. Taylor, but when folks are interviewing people outside the ranch that have seen things, they never seem to go far enough with their
They stop.
questioning.
And
They stop.
that's a direct violation of the scientific method. The scientific method, a school, I don't have to go to Harvard and become a scientist in nuclear science to figure out that the scientific method has to be a repeatable
Hmm.
event. It
All
has to be
right.
in the same
Well, that
environment and repeatable and has to be able to do over and over and over again before. Why don't they do things over and over again? Why are they launching a 15-foot tall freaking rocket and not have a single thermal camera or any camera following it or a GPS tracking device on it? And then they just say, hey, it's gone. We lost it. Dude, the thing went up to 10,000 feet MSL. It could come down anywhere. The town's not that far away. You're not even worried where it's coming down? Oh, it just disappeared. We have no cameras on it. It's gone. At the end, one of the last shows, remember? They lost their 15-foot tall rocket. I'm like, really? Why wasn't there a single camera pointing at that thing
well,
as
I think
it's
they've
way up
had
high?
some. Yeah, I mean they've had some cameras on it. At this point, I'm thinking a lot of it might be just production issues, where maybe they're cutting stuff out. I guess that's what I'm hoping it is, because it just doesn't seem like there's the follow-up. Like I think that's where you're coming from, the follow-up on what's happened after this. And there's been a couple shows out there like that. Um, for example, I'll go to Oak Island, another show that I do enjoy watching. I got to admit, hopefully this year they're going to find something. But they talked about finding some evidence several years ago, human bones, right? Well, what the heck happened with that whole human bone thing? They made a big deal about it, and now it's just gone. You never heard another word about it. And once again, maybe a production issue, but still, I think that folks want to know. And as a cop, I want to know. I want to take that to its conclusion. And it would be nice if they did. I think all the shows do a little bit more of that if they can find a way around their production
But see,
parameters.
that's why I hold Skinwalker Ranch at a higher level because they're not supposed to be produced like that. It's supposed to be decided on by Mr. Fugel himself of what. And if I was Fugel, I'm like, Taylor, you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars shooting these freaking model rockets in every freaking direction. Everything that happens, we're here to bump it tonight. No, shoot a rocket. Oh, somebody came down the driveway, shoot a rocket. I'm like, what the hell's wrong with you, dude? You're a scientist. Are you stalling intentionally just to fill airtime to justify your existence out here? And how in the world can you fire a 15-foot freaking explosive rocket up to 10,000 feet, which is the legal limit? Anything higher,
Mhm.
you have to get clearance from air traffic,
Oh, okay.
and not give a crap about it. Like, hey, it's gone. We lost it. Dude, what goes up comes down. It's got a parachute. Where the hell did it come down at?
Maybe it didn't come down, Ike.
Maybe it's just lost up there in that weird freaking blob he calls. So I just smell a rat. He's playing it, because he was able to hide his true identity for so long of what he's doing. So it's a pattern for me. If you do that once, you do it again. Is he just justifying his existence out there? Because I'm sure he's getting paid top dollar by Mr. Fugel himself. And because he doesn't seem, if he's really I have no doubt he's really a scientist. Why isn't he following the scientific method? Why isn't he saying, like, this rocket, because it's a huge rocket. It
Well,
can be tracked by thermal.
yeah,
It's hot. It's going to be hotter than anything up there in that sky. Why
yeah.
wasn't it being tracked? I don't
And
get it. I smell a rat.
and I would like to, I wouldn't mind having more information on that. But I think one of the biggest problems we have in paranormal investigation is that we can't do the scientific method often because a lot of what we experience can't be repeated.
Right.
Now, the rockets can. I grant you that. So I'm not necessarily talking about that. I'm
Another,
asking just go ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, I'm asking for just a little bit more in my field, a little bit more follow-up investigation. I think that if these shows conducted their a lot of their inquiries along the parameters that you and I have learned as criminal investigators, I think they would begin to uncover more answers. And
I think
and
so too.
they and I think there's a way to combine the scientific with the law enforcement foundation of investigation. There's a way to combine the two that I think can produce better answers.
And just
That's
having
that's
some
my
good
opinion.
paranormal investigators out there wouldn't hurt at all. Because
Oh, I
paranormal
have.
activity has been documented besides UFOs and blobs in the sky and the countless
Mhm.
rockets flying in all directions. There has been other activity that could be construed as, the spirit world and
Yeah,
skinwalkers and that kind of stuff. I mean, having some experts in that field on the crew wouldn't probably hurt. The other thing that kind of irritated me is And they put that guy on top of the mesa with that little baby freaking drill. I can't remember what you call those drills, but they're not designed for that.
Yeah.
That thing runs off a two-stroke, five horsepower motor with a little 1.5 inch drill. How deep were you expecting to get with that? And
Hmm.
supposedly he was up there for a month, but when you look at it, he didn't even have a chair up there. He didn't even have a place to sit. No shade, no umbrella, no water bottles. How about a little porta potty or something? I mean, nothing. It just kept showing the drill not going anywhere. I'm like, I don't
How
buy it.
about some trap cameras up there? How about something monitoring it 24/7? I mean, little things like that. Um,
Well, that kind of drill can't operate by itself. So
yeah.
because it didn't even have a counterweight on it. You have to basically put your own weight on it to make it penetrate the
Oh,
ground.
really?
And yeah,
Okay.
that's a horrible idea. I mean, have they not watched Secret of Blind Frog Ranch? I mean, there's tons of different drills out there. There's a drill called a rat hole drill they use a lot in
Mhm.
Texas, and it'll drill an 18-inch hole straight down, nice and clean, go through anything it encounters, except for the
Mhm.
mysterious UFO that's 200 feet down. But it'll go down through everything, and they'll drill you a giant hole like that in a day.
Mhm.
Why not use that? What are you doing with that guy up there with his freaking Home Depot drill? Was that just filler? I mean, come on, people.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, and I can't remember this. When they were drilling horizontally into the mountain and they were getting all kinds of material out, material that was not unlike what they used in aircraft. Remember that?
Hmm.
Did they actually ever send that out to be chemically examined
I don't
or
think so.
forensically examined?
I think they just
Once
called
again,
it heat tile. It's the same stuff the heat tiles are made out of for the space shuttle. I'm like, and that is what? Asbestos? Because asbestos is a natural occurring substance in the ground. I mean, what is it?
I don't, yeah. Well, that's what I was wondering. Did they ever? It's just like we do an autopsy. One thing that we're going to do in an autopsy is we're going to get toxicology back and find out exactly what in the body. And I don't know if they haven't done that, but if they have, I don't remember seeing it on there. So anyway, that's just kind of the sort of thing that I would like to see more of. I think there's a way to combine solid scientific inquiry along with criminal investigators. And let's face it, you and I both employ our skills as criminal investigators into our paranormal investigative work too. I think there's a
Yeah,
way to combine all of it to come up with a better answer.
you would think so, and you would think they would know. So unless something so bizarre is happening over there, and if it's all true, then there would be a vested interest for the government and their plants, their spoofs and spies and moles they have working over there to kind of keep it under wraps for now until the season's end, and then maybe not renew it, and then bring the government back in and finish what they're doing. Maybe they have come across something that
Mhm.
is, it's imperative that they don't disclose it to the public. Because it seems to me they're really just dragging their feet. They're doing stupid shit, the little drill, the countless rockets. I'm like, you guys are like, you've come to run out of, what are you doing? It seems like they're just stalling.
And I've kind of gotten that feeling a couple times on the Oak Island Secrets of Oak Island. Sometimes they're dragging it out, maybe for production reasons. But you're right, Skinwalker Ranch, if it is exactly the way they say, and I have no doubt that it is, that what you see is what they do is what you're seeing. But do you remember the episode? And this one kind of drove me a little bit nuts. A couple of Chinook helicopters came
Yes,
over,
yes,
and
yes,
one of them had the ramp down with the guys hanging out the back end. I'm like, what's that about? And
yeah.
we've got no answers on that one too. And maybe it's because it is super secret. But if you're going to come over and you're going to check me out in a military helicopter, a Chinook just doesn't seem the way to do it
I came across
slyly.
a thread on the internet because I was looking into that a little bit, and supposedly I don't know if that's verified or true or not, but one of the flight crew of the Chinook said that they took off 100 some odd miles away from a base, and they were just flying around, and they've all heard of Skinwalker Ranch, and they just altered their course to fly over it a couple of times to see what's been going on there. And he said there was nothing nefarious
I
about it. There was nothing weird about it. They just knew it was right there, and they hooked a right and said, "Hey, let's fly over Skinwalker Ranch."
and I've spoken to military helicopter pilots that have done stuff like that. We're in Florida. Do you? I don't think I'm speaking sacrilege here, but I'm sure there's been one or two Air Force, Navy, or Army helicopter pilots that have cruised over the beach during a certain time of the day just to see
Yeah.
the scenery.
So
So,
I'm pretty sure
uh,
that's what that was about. And the other helicopter,
and
remember there was one dark helicopter out there
yeah,
during one of the tests, and they're like, "Oh, there's a helicopter above the field and it has no markings." I'm like, "How the hell do you have no markings? It's pitch dark out there." Like, oh,
that's
it's not
true.
transponding, and like a lot of military aircrafts turn off the transponder. And if you don't believe me, go on your phone right now, go to the App Store and download Flight Tracker. It's a free application, costs you nothing. It covers the
Yeah,
entire
I've got it
world.
on mine.
And I always follow it because every time a helicopter comes cruising over our house, because sometimes they rattle the windows in my yard, in my house, and I usually jump on flight track. I'm like, what the hell is that? Occasionally, they don't transpond, or if they're at a certain altitude, low altitude, the transponder it doesn't work. It might work for
Yeah.
the tower, but it doesn't work on your phone.
Now, if what you said the story about the Chinooks was accurate, and it was just a bunch of guys on a training mission decided to check this place out, um, and I don't doubt that, nor do I not doubt the sincerity of the guys wondering why they're there. But if you find out that it is just some guys checking it out, say so. To me, that would help the
Yep.
legitimacy of the show. Yeah, you remember those Chinooks that came over? We found out it was just a training mission that just wanted to check the area out. Tell us that.
Because if you're really
Don't
into
some,
the conspiracies of Skinwalker Ranch, what do they have? What do they have to gain by flying two Chinooks over to Skinwalker Ranch when you already have three plants working there? You know that are collecting all the information. What's the point of all that?
well, more than that, those are big twin rotored cargo birds.
Yeah, that
You ain't hiding from them. There's nothing. I mean, if you're gonna do things, this is my thinking anyway. If you're gonna do things slyly, you're gonna send over a dark colored uh,
drone.
Black Hawk or drone. Why not a
Yeah,
drone?
yeah.
Yeah, and do your pictures that way because you're not hiding two Chinooks
You know
with
what's
guys
funny is
hanging out the back end.
the redheaded guy, the security guy, not the chief of
Yeah,
security, but the other guy.
yeah,
What did
yeah.
he say? That's special forces. U.S. Navy SEALs only flying Chinooks. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
We had a quick story just to, and it's true that the 160th Special Operations Group they fly Chinooks, they fly Blackhawks. We had an event at the academy where they actually flew in to do an operation years ago when I was still there, and that's true they do, but they also fly cargo.
The
You know, they're
Marines,
not.
the Marine Corps still flies the Chinook. They fly the hell out of
Well,
those
well,
things.
so does the Army. Yeah, they all
I've
do.
I had three of them land at the Estancia, which is a really small town, and there's a dirt airport with a dirt strip. In the middle of the night, three of them landed side by side, crossways on the runway.
Hmm.
And of course,
Hmm.
me being the always like inquisitive kind, I immediately hauled ass over there. And they shut down and they got out, and I'm talking to them, and it was a piss stop. They were all peeing all over the not on the helicopter, but they all bailed out and took a leak all around the helicopters and like, oh yeah, we're flying to Texas, going to El Paso. I'm like, Jesus, you guys are flying in the middle of the night, rattling windows because they never fly very high. When you see Chinooks, they're always like 1,000 feet or less,
Well,
and
yeah,
they rattle shit because they're so huge with those twin props. And there was three of them flying in formation, and they all landed at this airport just to
yeah,
take a piss. I'm like,
yeah,
no concern over the citizens or the whole town waking up
yeah.
or thinking it's Armageddon. They didn't care about that. They all just had to take a leak. I'm like, you guys.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I just would like to see, uh, and I think this is worth us talking about, maybe picking up some shows and chatting about later, what we would do differently as far as a particular investigation. So I would like to talk more about that in the future. Just say,
Well,
hey,
we have.
why didn't they say this when they could have said that?
I would definitely vet the ex federal and ex private contractors that you're relying on heavily. Because if I was Fugel and this is my ranch and I'm the billionaire and I'm in charge and I'm really interested in what's going on there, I'm not doing it for the money because I already have more money than God. I would really be concerned about having all these federal agents or ex agents or private contractors. How about just bringing some normal people in, some normal paranormal investigators, some people that are really interested in this and don't have an alternative motive, which clearly Taylor had. That's why he kept it secret, which clearly the other guy had. I mean,
Which other
his
guy?
friend, his friend who was the president of the UAP task force or whatever,
Oh
They bring
man.
him in, and he's
Yeah.
not saying anything. He's just like saying, "I know stuff, but I'm not saying shit because I don't want to get accused of treason or something." I'm like, I don't want these people on my team. I really don't. I mean, Taylor seems like a
No,
nice
they're
guy, good guy to have a beer with and stuff and talk shit. But if you're keeping secrets
he's
from
been
me,
around a while. He's been on a lot of different TV shows.
yes, he's making himself very public and very
Yeah.
rich, very
Mm.
rich. Once again, I think I mentioned it last show. I did a what net worth on all these people out there at the ranch, and I think there was one person there that was worth less than $1 million, but not by far, like $850,000, and that's the redheaded security guy. I'm like, you're worth $850,000. What the hell have you done? Everybody else there is millions, millions. Dragon, he's like worth $8.5 million.
God bless him. I have no issue with that. I mean, if
I do
they're
because if you're that rich, where did you get your money from? How many people have you bullshitted with your crap? uh,
well,
Follow the money.
yeah, but is it really crap? I mean, Dragon's never claimed to be anything than what he is.
No,
I
he seems
I
like a
don't have
sincere guy. He-
yeah, I don't have any issue with that. And if Mr. Fugel wants to pay him $1 million a year for his work out there, God bless him. I've got
yeah,
no issue with
yeah.
that.
And
And I've
actually,
never,
Dragon seems like I watched a YouTube clip of him
yeah.
because Fugel gave him permission to talk uh, openly and frankly about what's going on
Hmm.
in contrast to the production crew. So they can, and there was one of Dragon. The first thing I would do is get rid of that name Dragon. I mean, you're not freaking 14 years old, dude. But the thing, the, he seems very sincere. I mean, he was honest. He goes, I'm not a Mormon anymore. I don't practice any kind of faith. I'm out here because this is very interesting and I really enjoy doing this. And Fugel pays me a lot of money to do so. A very honest guy. So
Yeah. And I
good for him.
think for the most part, and TV is still TV. There's still that part of it that's they got to get people watching the show. So I'm going to put that aside because that's a given. But I think generally speaking, most of the guys that were on there, I can't really go into it, but we're working on a thing here in Florida, has to do, I'll just say, with the Bermuda Triangle. I'll tell you that much. And a gentleman we were working with gave a holler to a member of that crew out there, somebody you see all the time. And I heard him on the phone, and he was interested in what we were doing, and he just picked up the phone from this gentleman I was with like he was nothing. So what I'm getting at is I think these folks they appear to be very as genuine as you can get with this type of show. And I think the way that Skinwalker is doing it is different. And I think it's a little more sincere. Does that mean that they're fully away from all the production desires and
Mm.
needs? No, it's still TV. But I do agree. I think most of them are sincere. Um, I would like to know why uh, what you would call it, Dr.
Taylor.
Help me, Taylor did what he did. That still does bother me. But I think Fugel I believe him to be legit. I believe the show to be as legit as you're going to get on TV. I think they're doing a good job. I
I think
just wish
it's
they would do more. I think there's a better way to do some
I
investigations
think
on
it's
it.
the most legit show involving this kind of occult stuff right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, that okay.
Because of Fugel. Because if you read Fugel's bio, he's a really
Yeah,
good guy.
yeah,
He's a philanthropist. He
yeah.
gives money to all kinds of people for all various reasons, and he just has a genuine interest. And that's why he bought the ranch because he heard about it and he heard the government being there and all this stuff, and he has a genuine interest in trying to figure out what's going on. I don't
Yeah,
think he's
maybe.
surrounded himself with the best people to do so, but because once again the motive bringing all these federal agents in, I smell. I don't want to sound like some wacko conspiracy theorist, but
But you
there's
are.
tons of scientists. You can go to any university, any MIT, and find
Mhm.
some really, really brilliant people that have not sold their soul to the CIA or any of those places that would probably come out there and give you a proper assessment of what's going on.
Well, and I'll differ a little bit with you. I can't say that they're not. I do see where you're coming from, and I don't disagree with it. And who knows? Maybe we'll hopefully find the answer because there's no question there's
I
some
think we
crazy
never will.
stuff going on with that.
I
Yeah,
think if they
and we
dig up something that's really bizarre or something out of this world or something, the show will end. A couple more rockets will get launched, and like that'll be the end of that. We'll never know. That's the problem I have because the government is so good at keeping their little secrets and their little family that we will never know. If they you honestly can tell me if they came across some kind of vortex or time machine or wormhole over there that could alter our faith, our humanity, everything that we know, that they would make an episode about it. Hey, on this episode of Skinwalker Ranch, we're going to tell you that God doesn't exist and that we're all aliens and that we're blah, 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 blah. That episode would never freaking air. Yeah, Taylor would be back in Washington, D.C., getting patted on the back, probably getting the Medal of Freedom. And yeah, that'd be the end of that show. I don't think they would disclose it.
Speaking of end of the show, I think we've
It's
hit our
the end of the
time
show.
limit. Yeah.
We beat this one long enough
Yeah.
with our senseless opinions.
Senseless opinions. That's just our opinions, folks. That's all this is. There's nothing more than that.
And they're good opinions. I mean, it's fun to talk about these episodes. We should do it more often. It's probably boring people to death. But if you're a Skinwalker Ranch watcher, you're probably listening to us thinking, yeah, it's exactly right. Way too many
Or that
goddamn
we're
rockets.
full of crap, one of the two. Yeah. I've heard that a bunch of times. But
That just cracks me up. I love saying that because it just sounds so ridiculous. But once again, people, thanks for watching and listening, viewers.
see you next time.
This is the end of episode 9. We'll see you again for episode 10 when we'll come up with something completely stupid again. Right?
Good at that. Yes, sir. Yes.
All right, guys. We'll see you later. Bye.
Take care. Thanks.